dear listener, to Sleepy Story Facts, where tonight's sleep story drifts softly outward through the dark, quiet reaches of space toward one of the most peaceful and mysterious worlds in our solar system, a moon called Europa, resting in the wide and patient glow of Jupiter. And as this bedtime story begins, you do not need to do anything at all except allow your body to grow a little heavier, your breathing a little slower, and your thoughts a little softer, as if each one were a snowflake settling gently onto a silent field of ice. So let this nighttime story hold you in a calm and steady rhythm. And as the calming narration continues, notice the simple comfort of where you are right now, the support beneath you, the quiet air around you, the feeling that there is nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be, because this relaxing story is here only to help you fall asleep, to help the mind unclench, to help the day loosen its grip and drift away into the distance like a dim spacecraft lantern fading into the dark. Take one slow breath in and let it leave just as slowly. And imagine that with every exhale you are floating farther from noise, farther from urgency, farther from bright and restless things, until all that remains is the deep hush of space, the velvet stillness between worlds, and ahead of you, pale and luminous, Europa appears, smooth in places, fractured in others, a bright moon wrapped in ice, almost shining like porcelain beneath the watchful presence of Jupiter, whose striped clouds and great swirling storms remain far enough away tonight to feel majestic rather than fierce. Like a giant lantern hanging in the heavens for your gentle bedtime, Europa is not the largest moon and not the loudest in human imagination, but that is part of its charm, because it is a world of subtleties, of quiet surfaces and hidden depths. And one of the most relaxing facts about Europa is that beneath its frozen crust, scientists think there may be a vast global ocean, an ocean hidden under ice, dark and secret and deep, perhaps containing more liquid water than all the oceans of Earth combined. And there is something wonderfully soothing in that idea, that far from home, beneath a shell of cold white ice, an unseen sea may be resting in perfect darkness, moving slowly, silently, patiently, untouched by wind, untouched by sunlight, hidden from the busy brightness of day. As you continue to settle, imagine yourself gliding over Europa's surface, not quickly, never quickly, but with the ease of a dream, passing above long reddish-brown lines and delicate cracks that cross the ice like ancient brushstrokes, markings formed over immense stretches of time, as the moon is gently flexed by Jupiter's gravity, warmed from within by tidal forces, not enough to disturb the peace of the scene, only enough to keep the story of Europa quietly alive beneath its frozen skin. And this is another comfort of science, that even in places that seem still, there can be hidden motion, and even in frozen silence, there can be warmth below. And perhaps that is why Europa feels so perfect for a gentle bedtime journey, because it reminds us that rest is not emptiness, stillness is not absence, and sleep itself is full of soft, unseen processes, deep currents of healing and memory and restoration, just as Europa's buried ocean may move beneath its shell, while the surface remains calm and pale under the stars. Above Above you, the blackness of space is not harsh, but tender, a vast and quiet canopy, and Jupiter glows in the sky with muted bands of cream, amber, and rust. Enormous yet distant, its light falling faintly over the frozen plains, and there on Europa, the horizon curves in a delicate white arc, and the ground appears almost like sculpted snow mixed with polished stone, ridged here, smooth there, ancient everywhere, carrying the patient marks of cold and time. This is the kind of night where facts themselves become a form of lullaby, where knowledge does not excite so much as soothe, where learning becomes a path into deep sleep, and so you may simply listen and drift as the mind pictures this moon of ice and possibilities, this quiet globe orbiting far from the warmth of the sun, and yet holding within it the suggestion of water, chemistry, and maybe, just maybe, the conditions that somewhere in the distant universe can allow life to begin in hidden places. Not life as a loud announcement, not life as a dramatic revelation, but life as a whispering possibility, tucked beneath kilometers of ice, resting in mineral-rich darkness, perhaps near gentle seafloor warmth, perhaps in calm currents that have circled for ages beyond counting. And if that thought feels vast, let it be vast in the softest way. Because tonight, there is no need to solve Europa, no need to reach the bottom of its ocean, no need to crack the ice or force the mystery open. Because this sleep story is content simply to float above it, to admire, to wonder, and to rest, letting each fact arrive like a small blue light in the darkness before fading again into peace. So as this gentle bedtime continues, imagine your own thoughts becoming like Europa's drifting ice rafts, slowly shifting, slowly separating, making room for calm water underneath. And with every breath, the body grows heavier, quieter, more comfortable, while the moon below remains bright and silent, and Jupiter keeps its patient watch in the sky, and the whole scene becomes a cradle of distance and stillness, a serene scientific dream, a place where a bedtime story and a sleep story become one long floating exhale, carrying you toward rest, toward softness, toward the slow and easy edge of sleep. Now, as this sleep story continues, let yourself drift a little lower through the stillness above Europa, as though you are descending on a breath so slow it almost seems not to move at all. And below you, the moon's pale surface opens into a vast and gentle landscape of ice, lines, ridges, and softly crossing patterns, like a map drawn not by hurried hands, but by time itself. And in this bedtime story, there is no rush to understand every mark, only the soft pleasure of noticing how beautiful they are, how calm they appear beneath the great silent sky. Because one of the most relaxing facts about Europa is that its frozen shell is not flat and featureless, but full of long streaks and bands that tell a quiet scientific tale of shifting ice, hidden motion, and a moon that changes in slow, graceful ways over ages beyond imagination. As you glide onward in this nighttime story, you may picture those lines as pathways made by the moon's patient relationship with Jupiter, whose gravity gently squeezes Europa as it travels in orbit, flexing it just enough to warm the interior. And this process, called tidal heating, is one of the reasons scientists believe there may be liquid water beneath the crust, which means that even here, in the cold outer solar system, warmth can exist in secret, tucked safely below the frozen surface, like a thought resting under layers of sleep. And perhaps there is something deeply comforting in that image, because the world above may seem quiet and still, while below there is movement, depth, and life-sized possibility. Just as you, resting now and listening to this relaxing story, may seem perfectly still, while inside your body and mind countless gentle processes continue, carrying you toward deep sleep with no effort at all. Europa's outer shell is mostly water ice, bright and reflective, and from above it can look smooth in some places and wonderfully broken in others, with reddish-brown stains and long dark tracings that may come from salts or minerals brought upward from below. And though scientists continue to study exactly how these markings form, the broad feeling they leave is one of ancient calm, as if this moon has been writing and rewriting its own slow diary in the language of frost for billions of years. Each fracture opening, shifting, and freezing again in silence. Imagine now that you are passing over one of Europa's long double ridges, those remarkable icy features that can stretch across the moon like raised seams. And they do not feel harsh here in this gentle bedtime journey, but graceful like folds in a sheet of white silk laid over a hidden sea. And you may think of them as signs that the crust is not entirely rigid, that it can bend and crack and settle again, which gives Europa an almost living rhythm, not alive in the ordinary sense, but dynamic, responsive, full of soft geological motion that unfolds so slowly it becomes soothing to imagine. The scientific wonder of Europa is not loud wonder, not explosive or bright, but a calm and thoughtful kind of wonder. A wonder made of ice thickness, ocean depth, tidal energy, and hidden chemistry, and all of it blends so naturally into calming narration, because it reminds us that the universe does not need to shout to be extraordinary. It can whisper through frozen plains and buried water, through fractures lit only by distant sunlight, through a moon so serene that even its mysteries seem to rest peacefully. Below, the surface appears almost luminous in places, catching the faint light that reaches this far from the sun. And there is beauty in how muted everything is, how gentle the colors become at Jupiter's distance: soft whites, pale blues, faint rust tones, shadows like velvet. And this dimness makes Europa feel made for a sleep story, made for a gentle bedtime, made for those quiet hours when the mind wants something real and beautiful to follow into rest. One especially lovely fact is that Europa has relatively few large impact craters compared with older, more static worlds, and that suggests its surface is geologically young by planetary standards, meaning the ice has likely been renewed over time, resurfaced in slow and graceful ways, so that old scars are softened or erased. And there is a tender metaphor in that too, because in sleep, as in science, the old roughness of the day can be slowly smoothed, covered, and quieted by the steady passage of restorative time. Perhaps somewhere beneath the shell, the hidden ocean presses upward in places, or warmer ice rises and settles, reshaping the crust from below infinite patience. And the thought of an unseen sea supporting the patterns above gives this moon a dreamlike completeness, a sense that the visible and invisible belong together, that the calm exterior and the secret depth are both part of one peaceful whole. And as you continue to fall asleep, the landscape beneath you becomes softer, less like a map to decode, and more like a lullaby written in lines and arcs, a soothing script of frozen movement beneath Jupiter's distant glow. And in this moment, your only task is to float, to listen, and to let the mind rest on this image of Europa, a world of ice, oceans, and possibilities, where the facts are gentle, the darkness is kind, and the science itself feels like a hand laid lightly on the forehead, cool and steady and reassuring, guiding you farther into the quiet, farther into the comforting dark, farther toward deep sleep, where even the moon below seems to breathe in slow silence. And now, in this gentle sleep story, as your breathing grows slower and the quiet deepens around you, imagine that your drifting path over Europa becomes softer still, as if the moon itself is inviting you not only to look at its pale outer shell, but to sense the vast and silent presence below it, because one of the most comforting and beautiful ideas in all of planetary science is that beneath this frozen surface, there may be a global ocean, deep, dark, and calm, concealed under layers of ancient ice. And in this bedtime story, there is no need to break through that ice or force our way downward, because the mystery is part of the peace. And sometimes, what soothes us most is not the fully seen thing, but the gently imagined one, the hidden water resting beneath a white crust, while Jupiter glows far above like a lantern in the sky. Europa's outer shell is thought to be made mostly of water ice, and below that icy covering, scientists suspect there may be a saltwater ocean, perhaps kept liquid by the slow, rhythmic kneading of Jupiter's gravity, which flexes the moon ever so slightly as it moves through space. And this flexing, called tidal heating, is such a calm and lovely idea to rest with, because it means warmth does not always come from sunlight alone. Sometimes it comes from movement, from gentle pressure, from the patient pull of one body on another, repeated over and over for ages beyond counting, until deep below the surface, a sea may endure in darkness, quiet and complete. Picture that hidden ocean now not as a stormy place, not as a dangerous abyss, but as an endless chamber of stillness, a sleeping sea beneath a ceiling of ice, where currents may move so slowly they feel almost like thought, and where time itself seems to soften, because everything on Europa invites the mind into a slower rhythm, a night-time story rhythm, a deep sleep rhythm, a calming narration carried not by waves crashing on a shore, but by the almost impossible hush of water, sealed beneath kilometers of frozen crust. Perhaps in some places the shell above is thicker, in others thinner. Perhaps warm pockets rise gently from below. Perhaps minerals from a rocky seafloor dissolve into the water over immense spans of time. And each of these possibilities has made Europa one of the most fascinating moons in the solar system, not because it is loud or bright or dramatic, but because it offers the serene possibility that a hidden ocean world can exist in the cold, outer darkness. and still hold chemistry, motion, and subtle energy. In this relaxing story, the science arrives like a whisper, and the whisper says that liquid water matters, that warmth matters, that chemistry matters, and that Europa may quietly possess all three in some form, tucked away beneath the ice like a dream beneath closed eyelids. And there is something deeply reassuring in thinking of such abundance, hidden under such stillness, because it reminds us that life, or the conditions for life, do not always need sunlight on the surface and blue skies overhead. Sometimes they may begin in shadow, in pressure, in warmth from within, in secret oceans that never see the day. As you continue to fall asleep, imagine yourself hovering above a place where the ice is faintly marked with long lines and gentle fractures. And beneath that bright skin, the ocean extends outward in all directions, curving with the moon itself, vast and enclosed, one continuous body of water under a frozen world. And though no human eye has seen it directly, the mind can rest there very peacefully, because the unknown, when held softly, can be one of the most calming things of all. Scientists have long wondered whether Europa's ocean might touch a rocky seafloor deep below. And if it does, there may be places where water and rock exchange minerals and heat, and this possibility has inspired so much gentle curiosity, because on Earth, where water meets warm rock in the deep ocean, unusual ecosystems can exist without sunlight. And while Europa remains a mystery, its hidden sea offers one of the most peaceful scientific invitations in the solar system, the invitation to imagine that quiet complexity may bloom in darkness. But tonight this is not a mystery to solve, only a gentle bedtime path to follow. And so we do not rush toward answers. We simply drift with the thought of a moon wrapped in ice and holding an ocean in silence, a world whose most beautiful feature may be one that cannot be seen from above at all. And maybe that is why Europa feels so perfectly suited to a sleep story, because it teaches the mind to be comfortable with hidden depth, to trust what rests beneath the surface, to feel no urgency in uncovering every secret, and to understand that wonder itself can be soft, can be slow, can be tender enough to carry you toward rest. Above, Jupiter remains immense and distant, painting the sky with muted majesty, while below, Europa keeps its ocean covered like a treasured thought. And as this gentle bedtime continues, your own thoughts may begin to loosen and sink, like snow settling onto calm water, like small lights fading one by one into a quiet horizon, until all that remains is the sense of floating above a pale moon with a sleeping sea inside it, a hidden ocean under ice, a serene world of possibilities, and the long, slow comfort of drifting farther into stillness, farther into darkness, farther into deep and peaceful sleep. As this sleep story continues, and as your thoughts grow quieter and more distant, imagine that you are still drifting just above Europa's pale and luminous shell, so close now that the long ridges and soft fractures seem almost like the grain of frost on a winter window. And yet, all around you there is only silence, only the calm blackness of space, only the immense and patient presence of Jupiter hanging above like a painted lantern in the dark. And one of the most soothing facts about Europa is that this moon is never entirely still, because as it circles Jupiter, it is gently stretched and released by gravity, again and again, in a rhythm so slow and steady that it feels less like strain and more like breathing, less like force and more like a cosmic pulse. And this quiet gravitational dance is believed to help warm Europa from within, making it one of the most peaceful and extraordinary places to imagine during a bedtime story. Because here, in the cold outer solar system where sunlight is faint and far away, warmth may still exist in hidden places simply because one world lovingly tugs on another. Picture Europa moving along its orbit with perfect patience, never rushing, never resisting, while Jupiter's gravity softly presses and loosens, and over immense spans of time, this motion creates friction inside the moon. A subtle internal heat, not enough to disturb the serenity of the frozen surface, but enough perhaps to keep deep layers from freezing solid, enough to preserve the silent ocean below, enough to make this relaxing story feel full of tender possibility rather than emptiness. And as you listen, you may notice how comforting that idea is, that even in darkness, even in distance, there can be gentle sources of warmth, quiet energies that sustain what cannot be seen. In some ways, Europa's tides are like the tides of Earth, but grander and more hidden, because instead of ocean water rising beneath a familiar moonlit sky, here the tides may move through ice and sea beneath a shell of frost, guided by the heavy influence of Jupiter, and also by Europa's celestial neighbors, the moons Io and Ganymede, whose orbits help keep Europa's path slightly stretched rather than perfectly circular. And that small stretch matters because it means Europa is flexed over and over, never violently, but persistently, as though the whole moon were a sleeping instrument touched by the same soft note across billions of years. And perhaps that is why the science of Europa feels so naturally suited to a gentle bedtime, because every important process here unfolds in slow motion, in patience, in repetition, in long and visible cycles that resemble the calm repetition of breathing, the steady drifting of thought, the sinking rhythm by which the body begins to fall asleep and enters deep sleep without needing to be told how. Below you, the surface remains bright and composed, and it is lovely to think that while it appears so still, the moon may be ever so slightly rising and falling under gravitational influence, the shell subtly flexing, the buried ocean responding in darkness, everything moving in a way too slow for alarm and too elegant for anything but wonder. And if you let your mind rest on that image for a moment, you may feel how beautifully it mirrors your own state tonight. The outside growing quiet, the inside still alive with slow and helpful motions, unseen but real, hidden but kind. This is the gift of a science sleep story like this one, that facts do not sit apart from comfort, but become comfort themselves. Because when you hear that Europa may remain geologically active through tidal heating, you do not need to picture noise or eruption or urgency. Only a moon being gently kneaded by gravity, only warmth preserved beneath ice, only a deep and ancient balance between cold and motion, between stillness and life-sized possibility. And this calming narration can carry that image softly into your mind until it becomes less a lesson and more a lullaby. Perhaps far below the crust, the ocean presses upward and settles back in long hidden swells. Perhaps the ice above answers with quiet shifts and faint fractures. Perhaps minerals circulate in darkness where no sunlight has ever reached, and all of it unfolds without hurry, without witness, without spectacle, as though Europa itself has chosen to keep its wonders wrapped in layers of silence, so that any traveler who comes near must slow down enough to feel them. And tonight, in this nighttime story, slowing down is exactly what we are doing, because there is no prize for reaching the end quickly, no reason to force the mind awake, only this peaceful journey onward through ice, oceans, and possibilities, where Jupiter's pull is not frightening, but faithful, where gravity becomes a cradle, where repetition becomes rest, and where the universe seems to say, in the gentlest possible way, that motion and calm can belong together, that pressure and peace can exist side by side, that even a frozen moon can carry warmth in its hidden heart. So remain here for a while longer above Europa, with Jupiter glowing across the darkness, and let the idea of these slow internal tides move through the story like a quiet current under ice, carrying you farther from the day, farther from noise, farther from effort, until your thoughts are as light as frost and as slow as orbit, and all that remains is the soft certainty of a moon circling in silence, a secret ocean resting below, and the deep, reassuring rhythm of gravity itself, rocking the whole scene toward sleep. And now, as this sleep story carries you onward through the still and shining dark, imagine that you drift gently across a different region of Europa, one that seems at first a little more intricate, a little more scattered, and yet no less peaceful, because below you the ice no longer stretches in long, quiet bands alone, but opens into wide fields of broken plates and softly tilted blocks, pieces that look as though they once fit together in a frozen pattern, and then, over ages, slowly shifted apart and settled again. And scientists sometimes call landscapes like these chaos terrain, which is such a dramatic name for something that, here in this relaxing story, appears calm and almost artistic, like pale porcelain resting on dark silk, like fragments of a winter mirror, arranged by patient hands under the watchful light of Jupiter. There is no need to think of chaos here as noise or confusion, because on Europa, even the broken places seem to move with grace. And one of the most soothing scientific ideas about this moon is that its surface may sometimes respond to warmth or motion from below, allowing sections of ice to crack, drift, tip, and refreeze in new positions, so that what looks shattered from above may actually be evidence of a world quietly renewing itself, slowly reshaping its skin while preserving the hush of its frozen exterior. As you continue through this bedtime story, you may picture yourself floating above one of these regions at a height so gentle that every pale block, every dusky seam, every smooth lane of refrozen ice becomes visible, and the scene beneath you feels less like a wound and more like a mosaic, a puzzle laid out in whispering whites, muted blues, and faint mineral reds, with edges softened by time. And there is something deeply comforting in the idea that even fractured surfaces can become beautiful when seen from far enough away. And in a soft enough light, perhaps some of these broken plains formed where warmer ice rose from below, or where hidden pockets of softer material shifted under the crust, or where the immense slow pull of Jupiter helped the shell respond in ways that took centuries, millennia, maybe longer. And this is the kind of science that belongs naturally in a nighttime story, because it teaches the mind that transformation does not need to be sudden to be real, that change can arrive as quietly as snowfall, as slowly as orbit, as gently as a sleeper turning in the dark without waking. Below you, some blocks seem rotated, some seem nestled together like quiet rafts on a frozen sea. And this resemblance is one of the loveliest things to rest with, because Europa's surface can look as if great pieces of ice once floated, shifted, and then paused forever in place. And whether the exact process was melting, softening, rising, or something more subtle still, the overall feeling remains one of hidden movement under visible calm, which may be why Europa is such a perfect subject for a gentle bedtime journey, for a sleep story meant to help you fall asleep not by emptying the mind, but by filling it with one serene image after another, each one quieter than the last. Imagine now that the faint light from distant sunlight and reflected Jupiter glow touches these broken plains at a low angle, so that each icy slab casts a long, soft shadow. Each ridge becomes a fine silver line, and each gap between plates deepens into velvet blue. And the whole moon seems to breathe in silence, not with lungs or wind, but with geology, with tides, with the hidden patience of cold water and flexing ice. And as this calming narration continues, you may notice how naturally the mind begins to loosen around such images, because nothing on Europa insists, nothing shouts, nothing startles, and even the moon's most unusual landscapes unfold in slow motion, in wide stillness, in a language of frost and time that asks only to be observed, not solved. One of the quiet gifts of a relaxing story like this is that it lets scientific wonder become a place to rest. And so these broken fields are not problems to fix, but landscapes to float above, peaceful evidence that even in one of the coldest places we can imagine, there are processes of renewal, rearrangement, and subtle energy continuing beneath the surface. And maybe that thought is soothing, because it reminds us of sleep itself, of how the resting mind also shifts, sorts, settles, and refreezes the day into gentler shapes, while the body sinks toward deep sleep. Far above, Jupiter remains immense and soft-edged in the sky, its great bands blurred by distance into creamy ribbons and warm rust-colored breath. And beneath that giant presence, Europa keeps offering its quieter details, its whispering facts, its frozen hints of hidden oceans and slow internal warmth. And this chapter of the journey invites you to rest with one especially tender truth, that even a broken surface can be peaceful, even a puzzle can be calming, even a place called chaos can become a cradle of stillness when viewed through the lens of a bedtime story. So let your thoughts drift over these pale, scattered plates, as though they too are floating. Let them settle into the spaces between ridges and ice blocks. Let them become quieter and more spacious, and if any part of the day still clings to you, let Europa's broken plains gently take it apart and lay it down in softer pieces, arranged under the dark sky with infinite patience until the mind no longer needs to hold anything tightly, until every thought becomes a pale fragment resting on a silent sea, until this sleep story, this gentle bedtime, this slow and soothing journey across ice, oceans, and possibilities carries you farther into stillness, farther into the tender dark, and farther toward the deep, untroubled calm of sleep. As this sleep story continues, and as the calm hush of Europa deepens around you, imagine that your quiet path now carries you away from the broken mosaic of the chaos plains and over a smoother, more open region where the ice seems broad and pale and gently luminous, and where one of the most soothing facts about Europa begins to reveal itself in the softest possible way, because unlike many older worlds that wear countless deep craters like heavy memories, Europa appears to have relatively few large impact scars, and that gives the moon an atmosphere of renewal, as though its face has been slowly refreshed again and again through ages of freezing, shifting, cracking, and settling, until old marks were softened, erased, or folded back into the patient whiteness of the ice. And in this bedtime story, that scientific detail feels less like a technical observation and more like a comfort, because it suggests that even in the cold and distant reaches of space, surfaces do not always remain fixed forever, and time does not only damage, but can also smooth, recover, and gently begin again. And so you drift onward over Europa's young-looking shell, as though gliding above a place that has quietly learned how to let its oldest wounds fade beneath new layers of frost. Below you, the ice stretches outward in long, calm plains, broken here and there by fine lines and rounded shapes. But so much of it still appears fresh, almost polished by slow planetary breathing, and the moon beneath you feels less like a lifeless stone and more like a sleeping world whose outer skin has been gradually renewed by hidden processes below, by the soft influence of tidal warmth, by the subtle movements of ice, and by the buried sea that may rest under everything like a deep, unspoken thought. And perhaps that is why this part of the journey feels especially gentle, because there is a peace in imagining a world where ancient scars do not dominate the landscape, where the passage of time can be read not only in damage, but in healing, not only in impact, but in recovery. And the mind, listening now in the quiet dark, may begin to take that lesson inward, as though Europa itself were showing you how the surface of a life can be marked, and then softened, cracked, and then calmed, interrupted, and then made whole again through long, invisible rhythms. Above you, the sky remains black and velvety, a darkness so complete it feels almost tender, and Jupiter hangs there as always, vast and muted and watchful, while the distant sun offers only the faintest silver touch across the frozen plains, enough to create soft highlights, enough to deepen the shadows into blue-gray pools, enough to make the surface glow with a hushed and delicate light that belongs perfectly to a relaxing story, a gentle bedtime, a nighttime story made to help the body unclench and the mind fall asleep as you move slowly and almost dreamlessly over these younger regions of Europa. You may begin to notice that the absence of many craters does not feel empty, but restful, like a page with room to breathe, like a snowfall covering old tracks, like a calm sea smoothing itself after a distant storm has long since passed. And there is something deeply reassuring in that image, because it reminds us that renewal does not need to be dramatic to be real, and that some of the most important changes happen quietly beneath the surface, while everything above appears still. Perhaps below the crust, the ocean shifts in long invisible currents. Perhaps the ice bends and responds in subtle ways over immense spans of time. Perhaps warm layers rise and settle and gently rearrange the moon's outer shell. And through all of this, Europa keeps its secrets without tension, without haste, without spectacle, as though mystery itself can become calm when wrapped in enough silence. And so this chapter of the journey becomes a meditation on soft resurfacing, on the patient elegance of a moon that does not cling forever to every scar. And in that sense, Europa becomes not only a place of science and possibility, but also a kind of serene companion for deep sleep, because the moon seems to whisper that nothing must remain sharp forever, that even impact can be quieted, even roughness can be smoothed, and even the oldest marks may one day rest beneath something gentler. And while your own thoughts drift now in the same slow way, perhaps becoming less distinct, less urgent, more like pale lines beneath frost, this calming narration asks nothing from you except that you continue to float, continue to breathe, continue to let the images arrive and fade in their own time, because there is no need to hold them tightly, no need to remember every fact, no need to map every frozen plain, only this simple, quiet companionship with Europa as it turns through darkness, carrying its youthfully renewed surface through the black sea of space. And maybe that is one of the loveliest things about this moon, that its beauty comes not from brightness alone, nor from spectacle, but from the suggestion of hidden cycles that keep beginning again, from the soft blankness of ice that has covered and recovered what came before, from the sense that beneath stillness there is motion, and beneath cold there is warmth, and beneath silence there is a story unfolding so slowly that it becomes indistinguishable from rest itself. So let your mind drift over these pale fields a little longer. Let the idea of fading scars and renewed ice settle over you like a cool, soft blanket, and allow the whole scene to grow dimmer and quieter until Europa below is no longer a place to study, but a place to rest above, a moon of gentle surfaces and hidden depths, moving patiently through the dark, teaching in its own silent way that even in the farthest cold there can be softness, renewal, and peace enough to carry you deeper and deeper into sleep. Now, as this sleep story continues its quiet passage through the dark, imagine that your drifting viewpoint softens even further, and that, instead of looking only at the pale shell above, you begin to rest your thoughts on what might be mingling far below, in the hidden ocean beneath Europa's ice, because one of the most soothing ideas in all of this bedtime story is that beneath the frozen stillness, there may be a calm and ancient sea where water, minerals, salt, and warmth slowly meet in darkness. And although no one has dipped a hand into that distant ocean, the possibility itself feels peaceful, like listening to the hush of waves through a wall of ice, like knowing that something deep and patient exists even when it cannot be seen. In this nighttime story, we do not rush toward certainty, and we do not need to solve every mystery before we can rest. Because sometimes the most relaxing kind of science is the kind that leaves room for wonder, and Europa offers exactly that. A world where chemistry may be unfolding in silence, where the simplest ingredients may be moving together over immense stretches of time, and where the hidden sea might hold the quiet beginnings of something meaningful, or might simply remain a perfect ocean of darkness and mineral-rich calm. Both possibilities equally beautiful in the soft blue hush of imagination. Picture that unseen water now is vast and slow, extending under the crust in every direction, touched perhaps by dissolved salts, shaped perhaps by contact with rock far below, and gently warmed in places by the same tidal energy that keeps the moon from freezing solid all the way through. And there is something profoundly comforting in that balance, because it means Europa is not a place of empty cold alone, but a place where cold and warmth coexist, where stillness and motion belong together, where the outer shell may be hard and bright, while the interior remains fluid, dark, and quietly alive with possibility. And as your body settles deeper into stillness, this calming narration may begin to feel like a slow current moving beneath the ice of thought, carrying you through ideas that are soft around the edges, because chemistry here is not sharp or complicated, not something to hold in the mind with effort, but something to feel as a gentle pattern. Water meeting mineral, salt resting in solution, energy moving in tiny amounts through the dark, each part of the picture modest and serene. And together, they create one of the most tender scientific dreams in the solar system. The dream that a moon so cold and distant could still gather the ingredients that make curiosity bloom, perhaps on a rocky floor deep beneath Europa's buried ocean. Minerals are released into the water little by little, and perhaps the water itself moves in long, slow circulation, carrying those materials through a lightless world beneath kilometers of ice. And perhaps, in ways too subtle to imagine clearly, the whole ocean becomes a place where chemistry is not rushed, but patient, not dramatic, but steady, not loud, but lasting. And there is a lesson in that for a gentle bedtime, because not all meaningful things happen quickly, and not all creation arrives in brightness. Some of it belongs to darkness, repetition, and immense quiet time. If Earth teaches us anything softly useful tonight, it is that where water, energy, and the right materials meet, surprising things can happen. And that thought, carried far out here to Europa, becomes less a claim than a lullaby, less a conclusion than a restful invitation to wonder. Because this relaxing story does not need to announce life in the hidden ocean to be beautiful. It only needs to hold the possibility carefully, like a candle cupped against the wind, like a single warm note inside a vast cold symphony. And as you float onward in imagination, the moon below seems almost more peaceful for what it keeps concealed, because its ice does not reveal everything. Its silence does not explain everything, and yet the quiet facts we do have are enough to make Europa feel full rather than empty, rich rather than barren. As though beneath the white shell there is not only water, but a kind of patient conversation between stone and sea, salt and current, pressure and warmth, unfolding too slowly for alarm and too gracefully for anything but wonder. This is why Europa belongs so naturally inside a sleep story, because its mysteries are not the restless kind. They are the resting kind, the kind that allow the mind to loosen rather than tighten, the kind that invite deep sleep by offering scale without fear, complexity without strain, and possibility without demand. And if your thoughts have begun to blur a little now, that is perfectly welcome, because this bedtime story was never meant to be held in bright focus, only to drift through you like dim reflected starlight on ice, leaving behind not effort, but ease above the frozen shell. Space remains velvet black and generous, and Jupiter still glows beyond, a distant giant keeping silent company, while below that surface, the secret ocean continues to exist in your mind as a place of profound stillness, a place where chemistry moves without haste, where hidden water keeps its own time, where possibility itself seems to sleep beneath the ice. So let the thought remain soft. Let it remain unresolved. Let the hidden sea be mysterious in the gentlest way, and allow this chapter to carry you farther from the busy edges of the day, farther from analysis, farther from urgency, until the science becomes only a murmur of water under frost, and Europa becomes only a pale moon holding a dark sea in silence, and silence becomes rest, and rest becomes the calm, slow threshold of sleep. And now, as this sleep story continues its slow and gentle orbit around Europa, let your mind grow even quieter, as though every thought is being wrapped in soft frost, because tonight we drift toward one of the moon's most delicate possibilities, the idea that, from time to time, Europa may release faint plumes of water vapor upward from its icy shell, not in any violent or startling way in this bedtime story, but as something hushed and graceful, like a long exhale rising from a sleeping world. And if you imagine it now, imagine it slowly, a pale veil lifting into the blackness above the moon, fine as breath on winter glass, subtle as mist over a dark sea, and so light that it seems less like an eruption and more like a whisper leaving the surface and dissolving into space. There is something deeply soothing in this possibility, because it suggests that Europa is not sealed in silence forever, but may occasionally offer a small sign of the ocean or hidden reservoirs beneath, sending a trace of itself upward through cracks in the ice. And even that idea feels perfect for a relaxing story, because it is not the drama of revelation that matters here, only the tenderness of contact between the unseen below and the emptiness above, a gentle bridge between hidden water and starlit dark. Picture yourself hovering in stillness over a region of pale ice, where the surface is marked by long lines and soft ridges. And somewhere below those frozen patterns, a narrow path may wind downward through colder layers into deeper places, and perhaps through that path, in rare and quiet moments, vapor rises, drifting upward in a faint column that catches the dim light and becomes almost luminous against the void. And the beauty of it lies not in certainty, not in the need to prove or measure, but in the image itself, the image of a moon breathing softly through ice. Perhaps that is why this thought settles so naturally into a nighttime story, because breathing is already the rhythm of rest, the rhythm of letting go. And so the mind, listening to this calming narration, may begin to follow Europa's imagined breath. Slow rise, soft fading, slow rise, soft fading, as though the moon itself is teaching you how to loosen the day and enter deep sleep without effort. And while scientists continue to study these subtle hints with patient curiosity, tonight we hold the idea lightly as one more beautiful possibility among Europa's many quiet wonders. Because this is not a place for urgency, only for calm attention, only for the kind of wonder that relaxes the body instead of tightening it. And so you may simply rest with the thought that under the ice, pressure and warmth and hidden water may sometimes find a path upward, and that the moon, which appears so still from afar, may occasionally send a silvery breath into the darkness before becoming silent once more. Above, the space around Europa remains vast and velvety, not empty in a lonely way, but spacious in a comforting way, like a dark room prepared perfectly for sleep. And Jupiter glows at a distance with its muted bands and softened colors, a giant companion in the sky, while below, the moon keeps its pale dignity, its frozen shell, its secret ocean, and perhaps these faint passing plumes, these little gestures of motion that vanish almost as soon as they appear. There is a special calm in thinking about something so elusive, because a plume is not a lasting monument, not a permanent mountain or crater, but a moment, a soft event, a brief lifting of hidden material into view, and then it is gone again. And perhaps that too is restful, because not everything must remain. Not every sign must be fixed. Some things are allowed to appear gently and fade gently, just as waking thoughts fade at the edge of sleep, just as worries can thin into mist when the mind is no longer gripping them. And if you imagine these vapor plumes now, let them be beautiful in the most subdued way, pale blue-white against black space, rising in silence, expanding slowly, becoming thinner and thinner, until they are nearly indistinguishable from the darkness around them. And in that fading, there is no loss, only softness, only release, only the simple grace of something returning to stillness. This is one of the quiet powers of Europa, that even its most active possibilities can be imagined as serene, and even its hidden energies seem to unfold in ways that suit a gentle bedtime, because nothing here feels hurried. Everything belongs to long cycles, deep cold, patient pressure, slow warmth, and a moon that reveals itself only a little at a time. Perhaps somewhere below, the ocean presses softly against the underside of the ice, and somewhere above, the stars remain unmoving and clear, and between them, the crust of Europa becomes becomes a kind of threshold, a white and silent boundary through which hidden water may sometimes speak in vapor instead of words, in mist instead of sound. And all of it feels so quiet, so measured, so profoundly at rest, that the mind can simply float there without needing to ask more. And as this sleep story carries you onward, you may feel that your own thoughts are becoming plume-like too, lifting gently, thinning softly, fading into the dark without resistance, until the mind no longer clings to each idea, but lets it rise and dissolve, just as Europa may do beneath Jupiter's distant light. So remain here for a few more peaceful moments with this image of a frozen moon breathing out a silver mist into space, a hidden ocean sending only the faintest sign of itself upward, a world of ice, oceans, and possibilities offering not noise, but hush, not spectacle, but a calm and passing glow. And let that hush settle over you now like a cool blanket, like a final slow exhale, like the kindest possible invitation to drift farther into stillness, farther into softness, and farther into the deep and dreamless comfort of sleep. As this sleep story continues, let yourself drift a little higher once more above Europa, not so far that the details disappear, but just far enough that the moon's pale surface and the great presence of Jupiter can be held together in one quiet view. Because there is something especially soothing about seeing Europa beneath its giant parent planet, as though this small frozen world is resting under a vast celestial lantern. And tonight, in this gentle bedtime story, Jupiter does not feel overpowering or stormy, but calm and watchful, a grand marbled light in the darkness hanging above the ice with such patient majesty that even the silence seems softer in its presence. Imagine now that the black sky is deep velvet, richer than any night on Earth, and against that dark stillness Jupiter glows with muted bands of cream, amber, rust, and soft brown. Its swirling clouds too distant to feel turbulent, its famous storms too far away to trouble the peaceful mood. And all that reaches you here is its scale, its steadiness, its ancient companionship with the little moon below. And one of the most relaxing facts about Europa is that its entire existence is shaped by this quiet relationship, by its orbit around Jupiter, by the gentle pull and repeated rhythm that help keep hidden warmth alive beneath the ice. So even now, as you float in imagination, the scene around you is not random, but tenderly connected, moon and planet moving together through the dark in a long and graceful dance. Below you, Europa's shell reflects what little light reaches it, and the surface seems almost luminous in places, like porcelain dusted with frost, with faint lines and shadowed ridges running across it in slow, elegant patterns. And above it, Jupiter hangs like a painted dome in the heavens, so large that it might feel impossible if it were not so serene. And perhaps that is part of what makes this nighttime story so restful. The way scale itself becomes calming when nothing in the scene is rushing, when everything is distant enough to be beautiful and slow, when even a gas giant becomes a source of stillness instead of drama. As you listen to this calming narration and begin to fall asleep more deeply, imagine the light of Jupiter not as a bright glare, but as a soft, reflected glow. A quiet presence painting faint tones over Europa's frozen plains, touching the ridges with silver blue softness, resting in the shallow fractures, outlining the gentle curves of the moon's horizon. And this dim illumination feels like the perfect light for a relaxing story because it asks so little of the eyes of the mind, only that they remain half dreaming, half watching, content to let the image hover there without effort. Perhaps if you were standing on Europa, the sky above would be almost entirely taken by Jupiter, immense and dreamlike, suspended over the icy land with such scale that words would become unnecessary. And maybe that is another quiet gift of science, that sometimes the facts do not push the mind into busyness, but instead carry it into awe so soft that thought itself begins to loosen. Because how can ordinary worries remain sharp under a sky like that, with a giant planet glowing above a silent frozen world, with hidden oceans below, and darkness all around like a blanket spread across the stars? And in this bedtime story, you do not need to stand or walk or reach any destination. You only need to float in this view, letting Europa and Jupiter rest together in your mind. One bright with ice, one broad with cloud, both moving in silence, both ancient, both part of a system so beautifully arranged that even gravity becomes a lullaby. Perhaps that is the deepest comfort of Europa, that it belongs to something larger without losing its own quiet identity. And perhaps that is soothing to us too, because we also move within larger patterns, days and nights, breath and rest, effort and release. And just as Europa circles Jupiter in patient repetition, your own body knows how to circle back toward sleep, how to return to calm, how to release the bright noise of the day, and settle into a darker, gentler rhythm. Below, the ice remains marked with the soft history of fractures and ridges, while above, Jupiter's cloud bands seem almost brushed on by hand, like slow strokes of cream and gold on an enormous sleeping sphere. And the whole view becomes less like astronomy and more like a cradle of scale and light, a place where facts and feelings blend into one long, quiet exhale. If any waking thought still lingers, let it become small beneath Jupiter. Let it become light above Europa. Let it drift like a tiny particle through this serene planetary glow, until it no longer asks to be solved, because this sleep story is not a place for solving, only for resting, only for floating, only for letting the mind be held by something vast and beautiful and completely unhurried. And as this gentle bedtime continues, imagine the orbit carrying you slowly onward, Jupiter never leaving the sky, Europa never losing its pale calm, the hidden ocean still sleeping below the shell, the possibility of vapor, salt, minerals, and soft inner warmth still tucked away beneath the frost, while above it, all the giant lantern of the planet keeps watch in silence. And with each slow moment, your thoughts become dimmer, your breathing easier, your body heavier, until you feel almost like part of the orbit yourself, moving without effort, turning without strain, held inside a scene so quiet and so immense that there is nothing left to do but surrender to it, and let that surrender carry you farther into deep sleep, farther into softness, and farther into the peaceful dark, As this sleep story continues, let yourself drift in the quiet path of Europa's orbit a little longer, because there is something deeply calming about repetition in space, something restful in the way a moon returns again and again along its unseen road around Jupiter, never hurried, never delayed, simply moving with the steady certainty of a lullaby that knows exactly when to repeat its softest line. And tonight, in this gentle bedtime story, Europa becomes not only a moon of ice and hidden oceans, but also a moon of patience, a world that teaches the sleepy mind how to relax into rhythm, how to trust slow cycles, how to fall asleep by following something ancient and regular through the dark. Imagine now that you are floating beside Europa as it continues its long curved path beneath Jupiter's quiet glow. And every part of the scene feels measured, spacious, and kind. The blackness around you like velvet, the moon below pale and faintly luminous, the giant planet above like a great lantern that never burns too brightly. And in this nighttime story, even motion itself feels sleepy, because orbital motion at this scale is not like rushing through a crowded world, but like gliding in a circle so large and patient that movement becomes indistinguishable from stillness. One of the loveliest scientific comforts about Europa is that its days and nights, its position in orbit, its gentle gravitational stretching, and the hidden conditions beneath its crust all belong to repeating patterns, and the mind loves patterns when it is ready for rest, because patterns remove the need for vigilance. They say you may soften now, you may let go now. Everything is continuing as it should, and so this relaxing story offers Europa's orbit itself as a kind of cradle, a repeated path through the darkness that never demands anything sudden or sharp. Below you, the shell of ice remains traced with soft lines and ridges, those long frozen signatures of pressure, movement, and time. While beneath them, the hidden ocean may continue its own slower rhythms, tides shifting in darkness, chemistry resting and circulating where no sunlight reaches. And all of it belongs to time on a scale far gentler than the restless human day, because Europa does not rush through mornings and afternoons as Earth does in ordinary feeling. It moves through great repeating sequences of position, light, pull, and response, and to imagine that is to let your own thoughts loosen their tight grip on minutes and clocks, and to settle into something more spacious. Perhaps this is why space can feel so perfect for a bedtime story, because it reminds us that not all time is urgent, not all progress is loud, not all movement needs to be noticed to be real, and Europa especially seems to embody that truth, turning beneath Jupiter in a way that is both grand and quiet, carrying its pale exterior and secret sea through the dark with the same calm again and again, as if the moon itself has mastered the art of deep sleep without ever fully sleeping. Imagine now that each orbit is like a long breath, not a quick breath, but one so slow it takes days to complete. And with that image, the whole scene becomes even more soothing. Jupiter gently drawing, Europa gently responding, the ice above remaining calm, the ocean below remaining hidden, and you floating nearby in imagination, beginning to match your own inner rhythm to this enormous celestial breathing until the body grows heavier and the mind less interested in holding shape, less interested in finishing every thought, more willing simply to drift. And in this calming narration, time itself begins to soften around the edges. Because when you think of Europa, you are thinking of a place where change unfolds over vast stretches, where surfaces renew over ages, where fractures open and settle in silence, where possible plumes may rise and vanish, where hidden seas endure beneath frozen crust, and where orbit after orbit passes with such dignity that even the idea of waiting becomes beautiful. Perhaps somewhere in the dimness, Jupiter's reflected light shifts slightly across the plains of ice as Europa moves. And perhaps those changes are so subtle that only patience could notice them. And patience is exactly what this gentle bedtime invites. Not the effortful patience of enduring something difficult, but the easy patience of letting the mind be carried, of allowing each sentence to arrive and pass like a moon circling a planet, like a tide beneath ice, like a soft pulse fading into the next. One of the quiet gifts of a sleep story is that it replaces the noise of the day with rhythms too large to argue with. And tonight Europa offers one of the best rhythms of all, a frozen moon repeating its path through the darkness, while holding beneath its crust an ocean of possibilities. And there is no need to reach the end of that possibility, no need to force discovery, because the repetition itself is enough. The calm fact of return is enough. The simple truth that Europa keeps circling, keeps shining faintly, keeps carrying its hidden sea beneath the patient light of Jupiter. And as you continue to fall asleep, let the orbit become your own. Let each breath be one more quiet pass through darkness, one more gentle return to stillness, one more release from the sharp little concerns of waking life, until everything in you begins to move as slowly and as kindly as this moon, and the story itself feels less like words and more like a path, a circular, tender, endlessly reassuring path through black space, white ice, secret water, and time so soft it no longer feels like time at all. So remain here in the long orbit a little longer, with Europa below and Jupiter above, with all of space arranged in patient repetition around you. And let that repetition do what repetition does best. Let it calm you, let it steady you, let it carry you beyond thought and toward the deep, restful quiet where nothing needs to be solved, nothing needs to be rushed, and everything, even a distant moon circling in darkness, becomes part of the gentle and endless motion of sleep. As this sleep story continues, let your thoughts drift even deeper now, not downward in any hurried way, but in the slow and gentle manner of a feather settling through dark water. Because tonight this bedtime story moves with the softest curiosity toward the unseen floor of Europa's hidden ocean, toward the place far below the ice where water may meet rock in perfect silence. And even though no human eyes have ever rested there, it is one of the most peaceful places the mind can imagine, a realm beyond sunlight, beyond weather, beyond noise, where the buried sea may touch a stony interior and exchange quiet traces of heat and minerals across ages so long they feel almost like stillness itself. Picture that secret depth now as vast and calm, not empty, not frightening, but steady and enclosed, a world under a world where the ice shell forms a distant ceiling high above, and the water in between holds everything in a soft, dark embrace. And somewhere at the very bottom, there may be a rocky seafloor, ancient and patient, shaped not by crashing waves or bright skies, but by the slow chemistry of contact, by the gentle pressure of an ocean that has nowhere to hurry, and by the faint inner warmth that Europa keeps hidden beneath its frozen face. In this nighttime story, the scientific wonder arrives quietly, because when scientists imagine Europa's deep interior, they often wonder whether water might interact with stone the way it can in the deep oceans of Earth, and that possibility is so soothing to rest with because it suggests a relationship, a slow and tender meeting between ocean and rock, between salt water and minerals, between darkness and subtle energy, and all of it unfolds without spectacle, without urgency, without anything to disturb the restful hush of this relaxing story. Perhaps the rocky floor is uneven in places, rising gently here, settling softly there. Perhaps there are mineral-rich boundaries where warmth from within the moon is ever so slightly stronger. Perhaps the water circulates in long hidden loops through the deep, carrying dissolved materials from one quiet place to another. And perhaps these processes have been continuing for immense spans of time, longer than human memory can truly hold, until the whole buried ocean has become a patient conversation between stone and sea. And maybe that is one of the loveliest things about Europa, that even its deepest possibilities feel calm, because here, in this gentle bedtime, the unknown is not sharp-edged, but velvety, and the mystery is not a demand for answers, but an invitation to rest inside wonder, the way one rests beneath a blanket while rain murmurs far away, the way one begins to fall asleep while listening to a voice that asks nothing except that the mind loosen its grip and drift above that hidden seafloor. The ocean may be dark beyond ordinary imagining, yet not bleak, because darkness in a sleep story can be soft and sheltering. And below Europa's ice, it feels almost sacred, a darkness full of slow movement, full of suspended minerals, full of the quiet possibility that chemistry itself may be unfolding with infinite patience. And even if nothing more than water and stone are meeting there, that is already beautiful enough for tonight, already enough to carry the listener deeper into calm, because the universe does not need to be loud to be extraordinary. Imagine now that the water near the ocean floor moves in a current so slow it can barely be called motion at all. A broad, silent drifting that turns gradually through the hidden basin, brushing along rock, gathering faint traces of minerals, carrying them onward beneath the immense icy roof above. And all the while Europa continues its orbit outside, Jupiter glows beyond the crust and darkness, and the whole moon keeps its secret world tucked safely out of sight, as if protecting it from anything harsh or hurried. This is why Europa belongs so naturally in a sleep story, because every fact about it can be held gently. Every possibility can be imagined slowly, and even the deep interior of the moon feels more like a cradle than an abyss, more like a secluded chamber of stillness than a place of danger. And so this calming narration can guide you there without effort, letting the mind picture a hidden ocean floor where time barely seems to pass, where silence is complete, and where the meeting of water and stone becomes a kind of lullaby written in geology instead of words. Perhaps somewhere in that deep and buried place, the chemistry is just active enough to keep possibilities alive, just active enough to remind us that the outer solar system is not made only of frozen surfaces and distant light, but also of sheltered interiors, of quiet warmth, of secret contact between sea and rock. And that thought can be deeply restful, because it means the universe is full of gentle layers, full of soft hidden things beneath calm exteriors, much like the mind itself when it finally begins to settle into deep sleep. And as this bedtime story moves onward, you do not need to picture every detail clearly, because blurriness is welcome now, softness is welcome now. And if the hidden ocean floor becomes only a feeling rather than an image, that is perfectly enough. A feeling of depth, of quiet, of patient mineral warmth beneath dark water, beneath bright ice, beneath Jupiter's distant watch, all of it arranged in such a serene order that your thoughts may begin to sink into it, growing heavier, slower, and more peaceful with every sentence. So remain here a little longer in the imagined deep, where Europa's secret sea rests on ancient stone, where chemistry whispers through water too dark for sight, where the moon keeps its possibilities folded inward like a cherished dream. And let that dream hold you gently now, until the hidden floor, the buried ocean, the icy shell, and the vast dark beyond all soften together into one continuous calm, one unbroken and tender stillness, one final quiet path leading you farther from waking thought and farther into the slow, safe, and dreamlike comfort of sleep. And now, as this sleep story continues in its slow and gentle way, let your thoughts rise softly from the hidden ocean floor and drift upward again through Europa's buried darkness, through the deep, quiet water, through the cold, bright shell above, until at last you arrive just over the moon's frozen surface, where the silence feels even lighter than before, and where one of the most delicate ideas in this bedtime story begins to settle around you. The idea that above Europa there is not the kind of sky we know on Earth, not a broad blue dome with clouds and weather and wind, but something far fainter, far more subtle, almost like the memory of a sky, a whisper of one, a nearly invisible veil resting above the ice. And because it is so slight, so fragile, so close to emptiness, it feels perfectly suited to a relaxing story, to a nighttime story, to a gentle bedtime, made for letting the mind fall asleep in peace. Imagine yourself hovering just above the frozen plains now, where the long lines in the crust run away toward the horizon and Jupiter glows high above like a patient lantern. And around you, there is no rushing air, no storm, no sound of weather moving across the land, only stillness so complete that it feels almost sacred. And if there is any atmosphere here at all, it is so thin that it does not disturb the stillness. It only softens the idea of total emptiness, like the faintest breath left on cold glass. like a silvery trace that says this moon, even in its quiet severity, keeps a subtle outer softness wrapped around its icy form. There is something deeply calming in imagining a place where the sky is almost not a sky, where nothing presses loudly above the surface, where there are no clouds to race, no winds to chase, no rain to fall, only a pale, frozen world beneath a dark and open vastness. And perhaps that is why Europa feels so natural inside a sleep story, because it strips away so much noise and leaves only the essentials: ice, darkness, distant light, hidden water, and the tender suggestion of a thin surrounding veil that does not interrupt the silence, but belongs to it. As this calming narration continues, you may picture the moon's surface gleaming faintly in the dim sunlight and reflected glow from Jupiter, while above it, the blackness of space feels near, so near that the horizon itself seems to dissolve into it, and the whole scene becomes a lesson in softness, because not all boundaries are hard. Some are feathered, some are barely there, some are like the edge between waking and sleep, where thoughts begin to lose their weight and float free. And Europa's faint outer breath feels very much like that. A threshold more than a layer, a transition more than a wall. Perhaps this is one of the quiet reasons why the moon seems so peaceful to imagine, because everything about it invites lightness. The fragile sky, the frozen shell, the buried ocean, the long, patient orbit, all of it suspended between presence and mystery, between fact and dream. And as you continue to fall asleep, you may notice that your own thoughts are becoming just as delicate, just as thin and airy, no longer heavy with the day, no longer crowded, but spread out gently like a fine mist above the ice. Below you, the surface remains ancient and calm, marked with fractures like brushstrokes across ivory. And above you, the near-vacant sky gives nothing to distract the mind, nothing to follow except the vast dark itself and the steady glow of Jupiter beyond. And there is such relief in that simplicity, because a bedtime story does not always need more detail. Sometimes it needs less sound, less motion, less urgency, until the listener can rest in pure spaciousness. And tonight Europa offers exactly that. A world where almost silence has texture, where almost emptiness has beauty, where even the air, if it can be called air, is too soft and slight to disturb the peace. In a way, this makes Europa feel like the perfect companion for deep sleep, because deep sleep also has this quality of thinning, of shedding, of becoming lighter and quieter as one passes inward, letting the busy atmosphere of waking life fade until only the most essential rhythms remain: breath, stillness, rest. And that is what this gentle bedtime is doing now, letting the thicker, louder parts of the day fall away, while the mind hovers over this pale moon in the company of almost nothing at all. And perhaps almost nothing is exactly what is needed, because almost nothing can be so soothing. A faint sky, a frozen plain, a distant planet, a hidden sea, and a voice moving slowly enough that each sentence feels like a soft footstep on snow, barely leaving a mark before it too, fades into quiet. So remain here for a little while above Europa's sleeping ice, where the sky is only a suggestion, and the silence is nearly complete, and allow that near emptiness to comfort you. Allow it to loosen every lingering thought. Allow it to teach you that rest does not require fullness, only gentleness, only enough beauty to hold the mind for a moment before it drifts. And as the moon turns patiently under Jupiter's glow, and as the faint outer veil above the surface remains so delicate that it is almost indistinguishable from space itself, let your own awareness become equally soft, equally thin, equally free of effort, until there is no need to follow every word, no need to hold every image, only this calm floating sense of Europa beneath you, darkness around you, and a peaceful stillness so complete that it feels like the universe itself has lowered its voice to help you sleep. As this sleep story continues, let yourself drift into an even quieter layer of the journey, where nothing needs to be discovered and nothing needs to be solved, because tonight Europa offers one of its gentlest gifts, the gift of silence, a silence so wide and so complete that it feels almost like a living thing, a peaceful presence resting over the ice, beneath Jupiter, around the hidden ocean, and all through the long dark of space. And if you imagine that silence now, imagine it not as emptiness, but as softness, as a great still fabric spread over the moon, covering every ridge, every fracture, every pale frozen field in a hush so tender that even your own thoughts may begin to lower their voices in response. Picture yourself hovering above the surface once more, neither too high nor too near, suspended in that calm place where the details of the ice remain visible. But the whole world also feels dreamlike, and beneath you Europa gleams faintly, its shell marked by long, delicate lines like traces left by time itself, while above you Jupiter hangs in the darkness like a dim lantern painted with cloud. And yet, despite the vastness of everything around you, there is no wind, no rustle, no calling sound, no movement that asks to be heard. Only the deep and perfect quiet of a moon wrapped in ice and distance. On Earth, silence is rarely complete, because somewhere there is always a breeze in leaves, a distant engine, a settling floorboard, a small reminder that the world is busy and awake. But here, in this gentle bedtime story, Europa feels like a place where the universe has finally decided to rest, where sound itself has grown sleepy and drifted away. And that idea can be so deeply calming, because the mind that has listened all day to voices, machines, plans, worries, and bright restless thoughts may now imagine a world where all of that has fallen away, leaving only stillness and the slow company of cold light. Perhaps this is one of the most relaxing facts of all about distant icy moons, that they invite us to think beyond noise, beyond weather, beyond the constant hum of human life. And on Europa, that invitation feels especially soft, because everything there seems built for quiet wonder. The frozen crust holding its secret ocean beneath, the faint sky barely existing above, the long orbit continuing with patient grace, and through it all a silence so profound that it almost becomes a form of music, not heard with ears, but felt by the heart of the imagination. As this nighttime story carries you onward, imagine that the silence of Europa is not blank, but layered. The silence above the surface, the silence inside the ice, the silence under the ice, where dark water may move in slow, hidden currents, the silence of the rocky floor far below, and the silence of space all around, each one resting inside the next, like soft blankets folded over one another. And perhaps that is why the mind begins to loosen so easily here, because it senses that nothing in this world will suddenly intrude. Nothing will demand your attention. Nothing will break the hush that has gathered so carefully around the moon. And if thoughts still arrive, let them arrive quietly, as if they too must respect Europa's stillness. Let them pass over the ice like faint shadows and continue onward into the dark, because this relaxing story does not ask you to stop thinking by force, only to let thinking become lighter, slower, less attached to itself, until each thought fades almost as soon as it forms, like a dim reflection sliding over frozen ground. Below, the pale shell remains untroubled, its ridges and plains sleeping under the weak, distant light, and Jupiter keeps its watch above with enormous patience, never too bright, never too near, simply present, as steady as a night lamp in a quiet room. And in that calm arrangement, everything begins to feel beautifully balanced. The giant planet, the small moon, the buried ocean, the hidden warmth, the vast darkness, all held in a silence that asks nothing and gives so much. Maybe this is why a science sleep story can feel so comforting, because it allows real places to become refuges of the imagination. And Europa, with its ice, oceans, and possibilities, becomes less a destination and more a resting place for the mind. A moon where knowledge softens into atmosphere, where facts become lullabies, where the idea of distance no longer feels lonely, but peaceful, because distance here means spaciousness, and spaciousness means relief. So stay here for a while longer in Europa's listening silence, where even the hidden sea seems to move without sound, where the frozen crust keeps its mysteries gently covered, where Jupiter glows above like a calm guardian, and where the endless night feels not cold in any harsh way, but cool and sheltering, like the quiet side of a pillow, like a room dimmed perfectly for sleep. And as you remain in that stillness, you may notice your body becoming heavier, your breathing softer, your thoughts more scattered and harmless, until the moon below and the silence around it begin to blend together into one long, peaceful sensation. A sensation of floating, of being held, of drifting through a dark so kind and so untroubled that there is nothing left to do but surrender to it completely, and let the listening silence of Europa carry you farther inward, farther downward, and farther into the slow, deep, dream-filled comfort of sleep. As this sleep story continues, let the silence of Europa remain around you like a soft and endless blanket. And within that silence, let one of the moon's most tender possibilities begin to glow very faintly in the imagination, because far beneath the frozen shell, beneath the ridges and plains and sleeping fractures, there may be conditions that invite one of the calmest and most beautiful questions in all of science. The question of whether life, in some small and quiet form, could ever exist in a hidden ocean so distant from the sun. And tonight, in this gentle bedtime story, We do not ask that question with urgency or excitement, but with softness, with patience, with the same slow wonder that belongs to deep water and long nights and thoughts that are already beginning to drift toward sleep. Picture the buried sea now as peaceful and dark beyond ordinary language. A world sealed under ice, where the water may rest in broad, silent layers, and where minerals, salts, and faint warmth may slowly move through the depths. And if life were ever possible there, it would not be bright or noisy or dramatic, but subtle, simple, and deeply calm. Perhaps no more than tiny living forms suspended in quiet currents. Perhaps something delicate and unseen carried in darkness through a place untouched by wind or sunrise. And there is something especially soothing in imagining life not as a loud arrival, but as a whisper, a patient beginning hidden beneath miles of ice on Earth. Even in the darkest depths of our oceans, life has found ways to exist where sunlight never reaches. And this scientific truth makes Europa feel all the more serene and wondrous, because it reminds the sleepy mind that warmth and water and chemistry can sometimes be enough to open the smallest door to possibility. And in this relaxing story, that possibility does not need to become certainty to be beautiful. It only needs to remain gentle. A quiet maybe, a soft lantern glowing under frozen water, a thought held loosely rather than solved, perhaps somewhere in the deep European Sea, near places where water touches rock. Faint exchanges of energy continue in darkness, and perhaps over immense stretches of time, those conditions create a hidden steadiness, a tiny habitable calm in the heart of a frozen moon. And if that idea feels large, let it be large in the most restful way, because the universe does not become less peaceful when it holds possibilities. It becomes more tender, more layered, more kind to the mind that wants something vast, yet soothing to drift within. And as this nighttime story carries you farther from waking thought, you may notice that the idea of possible life on Europa is comforting, not because it promises discovery, but because it speaks of quiet persistence, of existence in sheltered places, of things continuing softly where no one is watching. And perhaps that is one reason it belongs so naturally in a bedtime story, because sleep itself is also a hidden process, a secret interior world where healing and memory and restoration move beneath the still surface of the body. Just as Europa may hold its own unseen processes beneath its shell of ice, imagine then that the moon below you is keeping a careful secret, not out of fear, but out of peace, holding its ocean close, holding its chemistry close, holding every possibility within a chamber of cold white silence. And above it, Jupiter glows with its muted bands like a guardian lamp in the darkness, never intruding, only accompanying, while the moon continues its patient orbit, and the hidden sea continues its invisible, age-long rest. This is the kind of science that calms rather than stirs, because it leaves room for mystery without sharpness, for wonder without noise, for questions that do not demand answers before morning. And so you may simply lie here in the imagination beside Europa and let the possibility of life remain as soft as a distant pulse under ice, as faint as a current beneath dark water, as delicate as breath in a sleeping room. Perhaps if life exists anywhere beyond Earth, some of it may begin in places just like this, in oceans without sunlight, in sheltered darkness, in worlds where the surface appears cold. And still, while beneath there is motion, chemistry, and quiet potential. And even if Europa remains only a promise and not a proof, that promise is already enough to soothe the mind, because it tells us that the universe is not empty in a barren way, but full of hidden chambers, secret waters, and patient possibilities waiting in the dark, with no need to hurry into view. And maybe that is why this chapter feels especially sleepy, because it invites you to rest inside uncertainty, the way you rest inside a blanket, comfortably, without resistance, letting the unknown remain unknown while still feeling safe within it. And as your thoughts begin to blur and thin, the whole image of Europa may become simpler now. A pale moon beneath Jupiter, a shell of luminous ice, a buried ocean below, and somewhere in that ocean, the gentlest question of all, not spoken aloud, not answered, only carried softly forward like a dream. So remain there a little longer, floating above the moon of ice, oceans, and possibilities, and let the thought of quiet life, tiny and hidden and untroubled, drift through the story like a faint blue light under frozen water, until even that light begins to dim, and the question itself becomes restful, and the moon becomes only calm, and calm becomes only stillness, and stillness carries you slowly, safely, and almost completely into sleep. As this sleep story continues, let the moon remain softly beneath you, pale and patient and wrapped in its own silence. And within that silence, let another gentle thought begin to form. Not a loud thought, not a hurried one, but a quiet thought about the future. Because one of the most calming things about Europa is that it is still waiting, still keeping its frozen beauty and its hidden ocean and its unanswered questions in perfect stillness, as though it understands that discovery does not need to arrive quickly, and that some of the loveliest mysteries can rest for a long time before anyone comes close enough to listen. Imagine now that far away, across the darkness, there are minds that dream of this moon, patient minds, careful minds, curious minds, and that one-day journeys will continue outward toward Europa, not as invasions, not as interruptions, but as slow and respectful visits, like quiet footsteps approaching a sleeping shoreline. And in this bedtime story, those future journeys feel serene, because they are born not from noise or conquest, but from wonder, from the simple human wish to understand what lies beneath the ice, what sort of ocean rests in darkness, what histories are written in the fractured shell, and whether this faraway moon might teach us something gentle about how worlds keep their secrets. Picture the scene as though time itself has slowed to a hush, with Europa turning beneath Jupiter's distant glow, while somewhere far away, perhaps years away, perhaps longer, instruments and travelers of the mind prepare to come nearer. And even that preparation feels peaceful here, because the future does not rush toward the moon. It drifts toward it, carried by patience, by mathematics, by careful observation, by the same quiet longing that has drawn human attention toward the stars for so long. And there is something deeply soothing in that, because it reminds us that curiosity can be calm, that knowledge can approach softly, that the universe does not have to be chased to be loved. Below you, Europa remains exactly as it is all night in this relaxing story, luminous in places, delicately marked by ridges and fractures, silent under the watch of Jupiter, holding its ocean close beneath the ice. And perhaps that is what makes the idea of future journeys so restful. The feeling that when explorers eventually come nearer, they will not be arriving at chaos, but at a world already composed, already serene, already waiting in a kind of patient stillness that no distance can disturb. And as this gentle bedtime continues, you may imagine those future visitors not as noisy machines or bright intrusions, but as small and respectful presences in the dark, drifting slowly, observing carefully, listening in their own quiet way to the faint signals of ice, chemistry, motion, and hidden depth. And perhaps even their questions will seem softer here, because Europa has a way of softening everything, turning urgency into patience, turning ambition into wonder, turning the sharp edge of discovery into something more like reverence. Perhaps one day the frozen shell will be mapped in greater detail. Perhaps the hidden ocean will be understood a little better. Perhaps the moon will offer up one or two more clues about its inner warmth, its salts, its chemistry, its long silent tides. And yet, even in that imagined future, there is no need, in this nighttime story, to leap ahead too quickly, because the comfort lies not in the answers themselves, but in the gentle approach, in the idea that understanding can unfold little by little, with care, with humility, with enough slowness to match the mood of the world being studied. And maybe that is why Europa feels so perfect for a sleep story, because it teaches a beautiful kind of restraint, the kind that says not everything must be known tonight, not everything must be illuminated at once, not every hidden ocean must be opened before we can rest. And instead, we can lie here peacefully with the thought that the future will keep moving quietly and steadily, and that this moon will remain out here in the dark, serene and luminous, waiting with all the patience of ice and orbit and deep concealed water. Above, Jupiter still glows like a vast lantern dimmed for bedtime, and around you the blackness of space feels expansive rather than empty, like a great room prepared for sleep. And in that room, Europa becomes both destination and lullaby, both fact and dream, both a real moon of the outer solar system and a symbol of all the hidden things in the universe that ask to be approached gently. Perhaps human curiosity at its best is also like this, not a harsh beam, but a soft lamp, not a shout, but a whisper, not a demand for certainty, but a willingness to float beside mystery and learn from it slowly. And if that is true, then Europa may be one of its finest teachers, because every part of this moon invites slower looking, quieter listening, deeper patience. And as you continue to fall asleep, those qualities may begin to settle into you as well, until your own thoughts become less urgent, less crowded, more spacious and calm. Let the future drift out there now, like a distant silver thread, stretching gently toward Europa without ever disturbing its peace. Let the moon keep its ocean hidden a while longer. Let the fractured ice remain pale and still beneath Jupiter's watch, and let the entire scene become softer and dimmer, as though viewed through closing eyes. Because tonight it is enough simply to know that this world exists, that it waits, that it inspires, and that somewhere ahead, in some patient tomorrow, quiet journeys may draw nearer to its sleeping beauty. And for now, that promise is more than enough, because it asks nothing of you except rest, except surrender, except the simple willingness to drift beside this moon a little longer, until even the idea of future travel grows faint and dreamlike, and Europa becomes once again what it has been all along in this bedtime story, a pale cradle of ice, oceans, and possibilities, turning silently through the dark and carrying your thoughts with it, ever more softly, ever more slowly, toward deep and peaceful sleep. As this sleep story continues, let yourself drift into an even softer part of the journey now, where Europa seems less like a distant moon to be studied, and more like a quiet place of rest, suspended in the dark, because beneath you, the frozen horizon curves in a pale and graceful arc, and everything about it feels gentle, from the faint silver light on the ice to the endless blackness above. And if you let your imagination settle there for a moment, you may notice how natural it feels to grow sleepy in a place where nothing hurries, nothing startles, and nothing asks more of you than simple attention. Picture yourself floating just high enough above the surface that the landscape stretches peacefully in every direction. A wide plain of white and blue-gray, frost marked by soft ridges and old lines, and far away, the horizon glows with the faintest suggestion of light, not bright enough to wake the mind, only enough to give the world shape, like the last trace of evening in a quiet room before sleep fully arrives. And this gentle dimness is one of the great comforts of Europa, because even its light feels hushed, softened by distance, cooled by ice, turned into something calm enough to follow with half-closed thoughts. Above, the sky remains vast and silent, and Jupiter lingers beyond like a great lamp turned low for bedtime. Its muted colors almost dreamlike now, while the stars seem very far away, and in that still arrangement, the whole moon appears to rest inside a kind of cosmic twilight, a place between brightness and darkness, between waking and sleep, between knowing and simply being. And perhaps that is why this chapter of the story feels so restful, because it asks you to remain in that in-between place where the mind no longer needs sharp outlines, where things can blur slightly and become softer without losing their beauty. Below you, the ice catches the distant light in quiet ways, along the crest of a ridge, beside the edge of a shallow fracture, across a smoother field where the frozen plain seems almost polished, and each small reflection feels like a whisper from the surface, not a message to decode, only a soft reminder that even in the coldest places, there can be elegance. And as you continue to listen, you may find that the landscape no longer feels distant at all, but familiar in a strange and peaceful way, like a dream you have visited before, like a gentle bedtime. Place your thoughts, already trust, and as this nighttime story carries you onward, the horizon itself becomes especially soothing, because a horizon is always an invitation to let the eyes rest, a line simple enough for the mind to follow without effort. And here on Europa, that line is delicate and luminous and infinitely calm, curving away beneath the blackness of space, as though the moon were quietly wrapping itself in sleep. And perhaps you, too, can begin to follow that curve inward, letting your breath slow to match it, letting your thoughts stretch out and flatten like pale frost across a silent plain. Maybe that is one of the secret comforts of faraway worlds, that they simplify everything, reducing the busy noise of life to the most essential elements: dark, light, stillness, distance, and time. And here on Europa, those elements come together in such a gentle balance that even science begins to feel like a lullaby. The ice above, the ocean below, the possibility held between them, the slow orbit, the faint sky, the listening silence, all of it now settling into one continuous peaceful image that no longer needs chapters or explanations, only presence. Imagine now that the faint light along the horizon begins to dim a little more, not because anything is wrong, but because this story is moving toward deeper rest. And with that dimming, the surface becomes even softer, the ridges less distinct, the fractures gentler, the shadows broader and more velvety, until the whole moon looks as though it has been wrapped in a cool silk hush. And your own thoughts may begin to do the same, losing their edges, becoming slower and less separate, melting quietly into one another like distant reflections across ice. Above, Jupiter still keeps its patient watch, but even that great presence seems to grow more distant now, less a planet than a warm memory of light in the sky, while Europa beneath you remains the true cradle of this bedtime story, the place of ice, oceans, and possibilities that has carried you so far from the day and so gently into stillness. And if any small thought still lingers, let it rest on the horizon for a moment. Let it become one more pale line among many, one more quiet mark on a frozen world. And then let it fade with the light as the moon continues its silent turning through the dark. There is no need to look closely anymore, no need to notice details unless they arrive on their own, because this is the part of the journey where everything becomes softer by design, where the frozen plains are enough, the curved horizon is enough, the dim glow is enough, and the mind can finally stop asking for more and simply lie down inside the image, like a traveler finding a bed of snow-soft silence under a velvet sky, and so remain here now above Europa's frosted edge, where the last gentle light rests on the ice and then grows thinner, where the dark around the moon feels not empty but sheltering, where the hidden ocean continues below without needing to be seen, and where the whole scene seems to whisper that nothing more must happen tonight, nothing more must be discovered, nothing more must be held, because the moon is already enough, the quiet is already enough, and the slow dimming of light across a sleeping world is enough to carry you the rest of the way, farther from thought, farther from effort, farther into that deep and peaceful place where the horizon disappears, the words become distant, and sleep arrives as softly as frost settling on ice. As this sleep story continues, let everything become softer now, softer than the horizon, softer than the faint light on Europa's ice, softer even than the thoughts that may still be gently passing through your mind, because this part of the journey is not about looking closely anymore, not about learning something new with bright attention, but about resting inside all that you have already seen: the pale shell, the hidden ocean, the quiet chemistry, the listening silence, Jupiter's distant lantern glow, and the vast black calm that has held this bedtime story from the beginning. And now all of it begins to settle together into one peaceful image, as though the moon itself were becoming a dream. While you drift beside it, imagine you are floating just above a broad and open plain of frost, where the surface no longer appears sharply ridged or carefully marked, but gently smoothed by distance and drowsiness, so that Europa looks almost like a world made of sleep itself, a white and silver stillness stretching outward in every direction, with faint blue-gray shadows laid across it like soft fabric. And far above, Jupiter is still present, though dimmer now in your awareness. Not gone, only quieter, like a light left on in another room while you rest in the dark. One of the most soothing things about this moon, perhaps the most soothing of all, is that it never asks for haste. And even now, in the final quieting of this gentle bedtime, Europa remains exactly what it has always been: a place of patience, a moon of ice and oceans and possibilities, holding its secret sea without strain, circling in silence without effort, existing beautifully without needing to prove itself. And that is such a comforting thing for the tired mind to be near, because here nothing performs, nothing rushes, nothing insists, everything simply is. And that simple being is enough. Below you, the frost catches the last suggestion of distant light, and the frozen ground seems almost velvety now, as if the moon has wrapped itself in a pale blanket. And perhaps your own thoughts are beginning to do the same, covering themselves over, growing quieter, losing their sharp corners, until they are no longer thoughts in the ordinary sense, but soft impressions, drifting patches of feeling, small clouds of half-dreaming awareness that move through the mind, the way hidden currents may move beneath Europa's crust, slow, unseen, and deeply calm. In this nighttime story, the science remains present, but it no longer stands forward in bright detail. Instead, it rests in the background like a memory of wonder. The idea of the ocean under the ice, the idea of salts and minerals in darkness, the idea of faint plumes, young ice, hidden warmth, possible life, and future journeys still far away. And all of these facts now become part of the softness, part of the atmosphere, part of the long hush that has settled over the moon and over you, so that learning itself becomes indistinguishable from drifting, and drifting becomes almost the same thing as sleep. Perhaps this is the quiet miracle of a relaxing story, that it can take a distant scientific world and turn it into a refuge. And Europa has become exactly that tonight. Not merely a moon orbiting Jupiter, but a resting place for the imagination, a white chamber of calm where the mind can set down its burdens one by one and leave them there on the frost, under the faint sky, beneath the patient stars, and there is no need to pick them up again. Not now, not tonight, because the whole moon seems to whisper that all things may rest, all things may grow still, all things may soften under enough silence, and And as you continue to fall asleep, the scene may become simpler still, until there are only three things left: the pale glow of Europa below, the quiet dark around it, and the feeling of floating without weight or effort between them. And even those three begin to merge, the glow becoming softer, the dark becoming kinder, the floating becoming more like surrender, until you no longer feel yourself watching the moon so much as resting within its calm, held in the same stillness that holds the ice above the hidden sea. If any small waking thought rises now, let it pass over the surface like a faint shadow and disappear beyond the curved horizon. And if another comes after it, let that one go too, because nothing needs to stay, nothing needs to be answered, nothing needs to remain bright and clear. And the beauty of Europa at this hour is that it allows all things to fade gently, without loss, without urgency, without regret. Just as distant light fades along the frost, just as a vapor plume might thin into space, just as the edges of waking thought blur into dream. And so the whole story becomes quieter with every breath, quieter with every sentence, until the moon below seems less like a place and more like a feeling, a cool white feeling of safety and spaciousness, a feeling of hidden depths peacefully covered, of ancient ice resting under muted light, of a universe vast enough to hold every worry and soften it into silence. And perhaps that is the final comfort Europa offers tonight. Not only wonder, not only mystery, but permission to become still, permission to let go, permission to drift into the white quiet between waking and dream, and stay there as long as you need, because the moon will go on turning, Jupiter will go on glowing, the hidden ocean will go on resting beneath the shell, and you, having traveled so far in imagination, may now do the gentlest thing of all, which is nothing, absolutely nothing, except continue sinking softly into the hush, farther from thought, farther from language, farther from even the need to follow this voice, until Europa, the ice, the ocean, the dark, and your own deepening rest all joined together in one final, tender, uninterrupted calm. And now, as this sleep story reaches its quietest shore, let everything grow softer than soft, calmer than calm, until Europa is no longer only a moon in the outer darkness, but a place where all the last bright edges of the day can finally dissolve. Because beneath you, the frozen world has become almost entirely still in your mind, a pale and tender sphere of ice resting under Jupiter's distant and dimming glow. And there is nothing left here to figure out, nothing left to seek, only the gentle knowledge that beneath that shell a hidden ocean may rest in perfect darkness, and above it the white crust sleeps beneath the stars, and around it all space remains vast, black, and kind, like a great velvet room prepared only for silence and rest. Imagine now that you are no longer hovering high above Europa, but drifting so gently over its surface that the moon itself feels like a bed of frost, a smooth and quiet resting place where every ridge has softened, every fracture has faded into pale silver, and every distant line has become as delicate as breath on glass. And in this final part of the bedtime story, even the science becomes hushed, because the facts have done their work so tenderly already. They have opened the frozen shell, revealed the hidden ocean, traced the long ridges, lifted the faint possibility of vapor, listened for life in the darkness, and watched Jupiter glow overhead. And now all of that knowledge can rest, can settle into stillness, can become part of the atmosphere of sleep rather than something the waking mind must hold. Below, Europa seems almost luminous in the faintest way, not brightly, never brightly, but with the cool softness of snow beneath moonlight. And perhaps that is the perfect final image for tonight. This quiet world of ice, oceans, and possibilities continuing on in silence, whether anyone watches or not, holding its mysteries without strain, holding its hidden sea without fear, holding its patient orbit as gently as a sleeper holds a dream. And there is something deeply comforting in that, because it reminds you that the universe does not need your effort tonight. It does not need you to stay awake and understand it all. It only asks you to rest within its calm for a little while longer. As this gentle bedtime grows dimmer, imagine the hidden ocean beneath Europa's shell becoming part of your own sense of rest, broad, dark, still, and sheltered. As if beneath the surface of your own thoughts, there is also a quieter place, a place where nothing rushes, nothing argues, nothing clings, only a slow, deep current moving through silence. And perhaps sleep is like that. Perhaps deep sleep is its own hidden ocean, covered over by the bright, cracked ice of waking life, waiting patiently for the moment when everything above it becomes quiet enough to let you sink. Jupiter, too, now feels farther away, no longer a grand planet to observe, only a soft lantern in the distance, glowing low in the heavens, and even that glow begins to fade in your awareness as the moon's white surface fills more and more of your gentle inward view, until there is only frost, hush, and the feeling of being carried by something larger than thought, something ancient and slow, and beautifully unconcerned with clocks or schedules or unfinished things. And in that feeling, there is enormous relief, because at last the mind understands it may stop reaching, stop sorting, stop following every idea to its end, and simply float. If any last thoughts arrive now, let them cross Europa's frozen horizon like faint shadows, and then disappear into the dark beyond. Because nothing needs to remain, not the day, not its noise, not its effort, not even the clear shape of this story. And if the images begin to blur, let them blur. If the words begin to seem farther away, let them drift. Because this is the soft ending, the slow fading, the part where the sleep story loosens its own voice and becomes quieter with every breath, quieter with every pause, quieter with every passing moment, until it is almost indistinguishable from the silence it has been describing all along. Perhaps now Europa is only a pale curve in darkness, perhaps only a field of white beneath a black sky, perhaps only the feeling of hidden water under sleeping ice. And that is enough, more than enough, because sleep does not ask for sharp pictures, only safe ones, only gentle ones, only the sense that somewhere in the great cold universe there is a calm place where even mystery can rest. And tonight that place has been Europa, a moon of quiet facts and softer possibilities, a world where the ice above and the ocean below have held you in imagination long enough for the waking mind to grow drowsy and dim. So let the moon turn once more in silence. Let Jupiter keep its faraway watch. Let the secret sea remain sealed under the shell. And let the whole scene slowly recede, as though carried on a dark and peaceful tide. Farther now, dimmer now, quieter now, until there is no more need to picture the ridges, the fractures, the chemistry, the distant planet, or the sky. Only the simple sensation of rest, deep and cool and complete, like sinking beneath still water without fear, like lying under a blanket of winter light, like closing a final door against the day, and finding perfect silence on the other side. And if the story has become only a murmur, let it remain a murmur. If Europa has become only a pale softness in the dark, let it remain soft, because nothing more must happen tonight. Nothing more must be learned. Nothing more must be carried. And with that last gentle permission, let yourself drift beyond the moon, beyond the words, beyond even the thought of drifting, until all that remains is the hush of hidden oceans, the calm of sleeping ice, and the deep, unbroken tenderness of sleep itself. And now, dear listener, as this sleep story reaches its final and gentlest moment, let everything become lighter and farther away, as though the whole journey across Europa has slowly turned into a soft white dream, because the moon beneath you no longer needs to be examined or understood, and the hidden ocean beneath its shell no longer needs to be imagined in detail, and Jupiter itself no longer needs to glow with any clear outline at all, since all the facts, all the images, all the calm and patient wonders of ice, oceans, possibilities, silence, chemistry, tides, and distant light have already done what they came here to do, which is to carry you away from the busy edges of the day and bring you to this quiet threshold where even thought can finally loosen and rest. Imagine now that Europa is drifting below like a pale memory of itself, a sleeping moon wrapped in frost, its long ridges softened, its fractures dimmed, its frozen plains blurred into silver and white, and somewhere under that shell, the deep secret ocean still remains, dark and peaceful and undisturbed, resting exactly where it has always rested, held in silence beneath the ice, asking nothing, proving nothing, simply existing in its own slow and ancient calm. And perhaps that is why this final bedtime moment feels so soothing, because Europa has never demanded anything from you. It has only offered stillness, only offered wonder in a gentle form, only offered a place for the mind to drift when it needed somewhere vast, quiet, and kind. Above the moon, the blackness of space is no longer empty at all, but soft and sheltering, like the dark inside a closed room when all the lights have been dimmed, and the day has finally agreed to leave you in peace. And even Jupiter, that great companion of clouds and distance, now feels less like a planet and more like the memory of a warm lamp left glowing in another world, a faraway presence that keeps watch without ever intruding. And under that distant watch, Europa continues its orbit. Its hidden waters continue their silent rest, and the whole scene moves with such patience that motion itself seems to disappear into stillness. If any part of your mind is still gently awake, let it rest here one last time on the simple beauty of this moon, on the calm truth that far from Earth, there is a world of ice with an ocean beneath it, a world of quiet possibilities wrapped in frozen light. And let that truth become soft, softer than language, softer than memory, until it is no longer a sentence, but only a feeling, a cool and peaceful feeling of white horizons, buried seas, and endless patience. Perhaps now the surface of Europa is becoming more like snowfall in your imagination, not a place with edges and lines, but a hush, a pale hush stretching in every direction, and beneath that hush the hidden sea rests as deeply as sleep itself. And maybe that is the final gift of this moon tonight, that it has shown you a version of rest written into the universe, a rest beneath surfaces, beneath thoughts, beneath all the little restless movements of waking life, a rest that does not need noise, does not need brightness, does not need certainty, only depth, darkness, and time. As this gentle outro continues, there is no need to hold on to any chapter that came before, no need to remember every fact, no need to keep even the clearest image of Europa in focus, because now the story may begin to dissolve the way mist dissolves over still water, softly and without effort. And if one image remains, let it be the easiest one: a pale moon under a dark sky, a hidden ocean under ice, and a slow orbit through silence. Nothing more than that, nothing less than that. And even that image may begin to fade as your breathing grows easier and your body grows heavier, and the distance between words becomes wider and quieter. Perhaps the frozen shell below is dimmer now. Perhaps the distant light above is lower now. Perhaps the very shape of the moon is softening into the dark. And that is perfectly all right, because the purpose of this final chapter is not to keep you awake with beauty, but to let beauty dim with tenderness, to let wonder itself grow sleepy, to let science settle into a murmur, and then into silence, until the entire journey becomes a kind of floating lullaby that no longer needs to be followed from beginning to end. And so, dear listener, you may let Europa go now, not suddenly, not completely, but gently, the way one lets go of the last thought before sleep, the way one releases the final thread of the day and allows it to drift beyond reach. And as the moon recedes into darkness, the ocean remains below its shell, Jupiter remains in the far distance, and the universe remains calm and vast around them both, while you are free to sink deeper, free to leave the words behind, free to stop listening. Whenever sleep decides to take your hand, there is nothing more to do, nowhere more to travel, nothing more to picture unless it comes to you naturally, because the ice has already become quiet, the hidden water has already become still, the stars have already grown faint, and the whole story has already laid itself down like a blanket of cool silver over the mind. And now all that remains is softness, only softness, only the feeling of drifting beyond Europa, beyond the dark, beyond even the idea of drifting, until the moon is gone, the story is gone, the last faint light is gone, and you are resting in the deepest, calmest, most peaceful silence of all.